Will Tigray become an independent country? Tigray is the northernmost region of Ethiopia. It is home to the Tigrayan ethnic group, a population of roughly 6 to 7 million Afro-Semitic peoples who speak the Tigrinya language. They are one of the core ethnic groups throughout Ethiopian history. Hostilities broke out between the federal government and the Tigrayan regional government on November 4, 2020, when the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front attacked a federal military base in Tigray in what they called a preemptive strike. While the federal government has often described it as a surprise attack, the reality is that it was the culmination of months of escalating tensions and deteriorating relations between the federal government and the Tigrayan regional government following the delay of federal elections as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, who had ruled the country for 27 years until 2018, when Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed came to power, were outraged by this and viewed it as an attempt to unconstitutionally extend the term of Ahmed, who took office following his predecessor's resignation and had yet to win an election in his own right. In response, the Tigrayan leadership went on with their own elections, declaring that they did not have a mandate to rule regionally without being voted in by the people for a new term. Tensions would continue to escalate over the next 2 months, with the TPLF recalling their federal representatives from Parliament, and Parliament later voting to cut ties with the Tigrayan leadership. With both sides viewing the other as illegitimate, this complete breakdown of communication and trust ultimately led to the beginning of armed conflict in November. Although TPLF forces fired the first shot, federal forces and their allies quickly pushed into Tigray, capturing nearly all the major cities in the region within weeks. When the Ethiopian National Defense Forces arrived outside of Mekelle, the regional capital, TPLF fighters decided to retreat into the mountains and pursue a strategy of guerrilla warfare. After taking the city, Abiy declared the operation complete without the loss of a single civilian life, and that normalcy would soon begin to return to Tigray.
He said people in Tigray have nothing to worry about and has encouraged refugees to return.
አንዲት ከተማ አንድ ሰው አልገደለም መከላከያ የማንም ሀገር ወታደር ቢሆን ከዚህ በለጠ ብቃት ማሳየት አይችልም።
So if things went so smoothly, why are we seeing growing calls for independence? Well, it's because they didn't go as smoothly as Abiy Ahmed would like the world to believe. Despite claiming that no innocents were killed, there's been a slow trickle of info coming out of the region since December that's indicated this is far from the truth. Several credible independent human rights advocacy groups like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have documented numerous atrocities throughout the region perpetrated by the federal forces and their allied militias. To make matters worse, the confirmed involvement of Eritrean troops on the side of the Ethiopian forces has exacerbated the issue, with these reports stating that they've been the worst perpetrators of all. Despite this, the government continues to refuse to even acknowledge their presence. So why do all these inspire independence? Well, when you invite a foreign country to come into your borders and massacre your civilians, rape your women, loot your hospitals, your schools, destroy your infrastructure, terrorize the population, you are sending a message to the people in that region in which all that is happening. And that message is that you are not our people. We do not view you as our countrymen, because why else would we allow a foreign power to do this? And that is what the Eritrean forces are. It doesn't matter how tied our history as a peoples might have been over the years. In the 1990s, they achieved independence and broke away from the Ethiopian state. So their presence is a foreign presence. Their crimes are the crimes of a foreign army, and the Ethiopian National Defense Forces not only do nothing, but in many cases they've been actively collaborating and participating in the atrocities with these foreign forces. And with reports of ethnic cleansing coming out in the West, it can be implied or assumed, I should say, that these foreign forces are intent on destroying the Tigrayan people, destroying the Tigrayan culture, the Tigrayan bloodline, Tigrayan history. That's why they're attacking cultural sites. That's why they're attacking churches and historic mosques. It's because they are intent on carrying out a full-blown genocide. And when you do that to members of your country, they are no longer going to feel like members of your country. The nationalist sentiment among the Tigrayan people is rising. There have been reports, there was an article in The Guardian that spoke about how young men are taking up arms, young men who might not even ideologically aligned with the TPLF in the beginning of the conflict, well, after 4 months of watching their sisters get raped, their brothers, sometimes the age of 7, get murdered by soldiers who think it's a joke, they decided to fight. And they're going to continue to fight because they now have nothing left to lose. What was initially perhaps a limited conflict against the leadership of a rogue regional government became a war of collective punishment on the innocent civilian population of Tigray. And the innocent civilian population of Tigray has decided that they would rather fight than die on their knees. And that will certainly draw out the suffering. I don't think anyone wants to see more people die. But the reality of the situation is the Ethiopian Federal Forces, their allied militias, their allies in the Eritrean forces are intent on terrorizing the civilian population. And there has to be some people to stop that, to try to stop that, to fight against that. And until the international community does something, or until the perpetrators of this war, the federal forces, the Eritrean forces, decide that there's no point in continuing this occupation and invasion, because I hate to break it to you, you can never be rid of the Tigrayan people. You will never be rid of Tigray. You will never be rid of the Tigrayan bloodline. Once they realize that is a futile attempt, perhaps it will end. But until then, the people will fight. They have to fight because they're fighting for their lives. And when you're fighting for your lives against your own countrymen, you're not going to look at them like your countrymen anymore. The day the world sees an independent Republic of Tigray is coming closer. I don't know when. It won't be easy. But it's coming. And the people of Tigray will be better off for it.